What up, Ballknowers? My name's Darian, and today we are back talking about the big four free agents, and today talking about the three secondary members, Brandon Jones, Jaquan McMillan, and Riley Moss. And now, as much as I would love to keep all three of these guys, the Broncos simply cannot afford to do so with their upcoming cap situation and a bonus extension looming, as I've mentioned before in the past in my previous videos. So they'll have to make a tough decision to probably re-sign either one or only two of these guys for the upcoming 2027 and beyond seasons. Now, I'll kick this off with my guy, Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones absolutely took a massive leap when he joined the Broncos and Vance Joseph's defense, performing like a very high-end free safety for the Denver Broncos, but he has battled a couple injuries, had the torn labrum, and ended up missing the playoffs, having PJ Locke step in, and was banged up a little bit in the 2024 season as well. But I still think Brandon Jones and Talanoa Hufanga are going to be a top-end safety duo for the upcoming season. But obviously, the Broncos have a little more shaky depth in the safety position. But I will save that for the safety deep dive video, which I'll be doing soon. And what I want to say about Brandon Jones is, as much as I would love to have him come back, unless it's on a pretty team-friendly deal, it's hard to pay safeties, and especially when you're already paying Talanoa Hufanga, and after the season, Hufanga could be extension eligible. I find it hard to believe that they might pay both of them. So that leads me into the cornerbacks, and that leaves you with either Jaquan McMillan or Riley Moss. Or obviously both of them, but I do think if you're paying two of the guys, it'll likely be a combination of a corner and Brandon Jones on a probably more team-friendly deal. And I want to talk about Jaquan McMillan first, because he is the guy I would probably pay today. Jaquan had easily the best season out of the him and Riley last year, and he's just an absolute playmaker in that nickel position. Jaquan would also be a little cheaper for the Denver Broncos, being more of an inside corner than Riley playing the outside. And I do think he is the better player at this moment. But I think this all relies on one guy as well, Jahdae Barron. But I'll get to him in a second. Moving on to Riley Moss. Riley Moss's, pseudo-rookie year and his second year on the Denver Broncos was really electric for the first half. He looked really good across Pat Surtain through that first half of the year, and then unfortunately he went down with that knee injury against the Raiders. After that game, the Broncos struggled to find a replacement until Chris Abrams-Draine stepped in at the end of the Browns game and had a pretty good stretch of play, snagging a pick off of Justin Herbert. But when Riley Moss returned, he got absolutely killed by T. Higgins and kind of struggled down the stretch of that season, and it was really hard to see for Riley. We were obviously looking forward to seeing Riley fully healthy coming into the 2025 season, and he had his struggles, honestly. I think Riley Moss did take a small step back from what we saw through that first half of the 2024 season. And while Riley Moss is still a very solid CB2, is he a CB2 you want to pay a lot of money to when you're already paying the best in the league, Pat Surtain? I think Riley Moss is going to command a pretty high deal contract as a CB2. We've all seen that he's pretty solid, and as he does get targeted a lot, he does end up having some more PIs, which I think was a big problem for him last year. I think another team could look at that and be like, well, if we have maybe not a high-end player like Pat Surtain, we can pay Riley Moss, and maybe he won't get targeted as much, and we'll have him play better as a whole. So I think after this year, teams could be very interested in Riley Moss and drive his market up. So unless the Broncos made a deal right now to get him on a cheaper deal, I think Riley Moss could command a decent amount of money. I mean, guys like Alontae Taylor, Cordell Flott, and others like that are getting paid a decent bit, $15, $16 plus million. I think Riley could close in near $20 million as a cornerback if someone believed in him that much. But I think at the end of the day, if a guy like Jahdae Barron can't beat out Riley Moss, or if the Broncos don't see him at the outside long term, they still could end up paying Riley over Jaquan, which is why this conversation is so interesting. Because you could even see potentially Jahdae Barron moving to safety. Does that open up the idea of bringing back both Riley and Jaquan? If Jahdae Barron can end up playing the outside, I think that makes your decision easy. You extend Jaquan, potentially Brandon, or it's only Jaquan and you look for a safety replacement. Either that's Devin Key or someone else, and you have Jahdae Barron out there for 3-4 years on the outside alongside Pat Surtain. But if they see him more inside, then where does that leave you? Do you re-sign Jaquan anyway? Do you just force Jahdae outside? Do you try to move Jahdae to safety? It's very, very difficult. I think the Broncos are going to have to determine that this year. I think the best case scenario, honestly, for the Broncos is if Jahdae can play outside, or if he beats Riley Moss out, and you potentially could move Riley Moss even before around the deadline or before free agency, or you just let him walk at the end of the year. But I think the Broncos are almost at fault for taking Jahdae Barron in the first round. If they had a more depth corner or a guy like Chris Abrams-Drain, you wouldn't be as worried about the situation than you are even having Jahdae Barron. Because although I think Jahdae Barron is a better player than Chris Abrams-Drain, there's so much pressure on him and the organization for him to hit as a first-round pick. But like I said, my idea is that Jahdae Barron can and will be able to play on the outside next to Pat Surtain. He's obviously got a little shorter arms. He's not as tall as Riley Moss, but I do think he's an athletic enough player to play on the outside if the Broncos give him the chance to do so. Maybe you back him off, don't play as much press man, but I still think you can do a lot of things with him there and still play very versatile. As well as look to draft maybe a longer outside corner, and maybe you only give Jaquan McMillan a shorter term extension, or you take Brandon Jones back, Jahdae Barron is your nickel, and you find a different outside corner. I think that's another possibility as well. There's so many mixed match possibilities with a guy like Jahdae Barron. I think that makes it difficult, but I do think it's also a little reassuring that you have a player that you trust and believe in right behind all of these potential positions. Let me know which combination of the two and which guy as the only guy, I think there's a potential that only one of these three gets re-signed, that you would re-sign. Like I said, I think it's Jaquan McMillan. I think he'll be the cheaper of the bunch, and I think he is the best player, at least the best corner. I think Brandon Jones might be a little better, but I think Jaquan McMillan would be the guy I sign right now if Jahdae Barron could play at the outside. Anyways, we got our last two positions coming up. We got the QBs, and then we got the safety deep dives, and then hopefully we are closing in on camp here very, very soon. So follow me, follow my YouTube, hit up all of my friends that I follow, and take it easy.